Okay, I'm going to start with a tiny version of myself made by my cousin, Linda McCarthy. And basically, it's a little version of me sitting at my desk, thinking, trying to come up with an idea, which is what I have to do all the time. That's my work, to, come up with an idea for a drawing or a cartoon, because without an idea, there can't be a cartoon or a book or a story. So the little version of me sits at its desk, which is a sort of facsimile of my desk, my ink bottle, my pen, and it's sitting in its own little world, thinking, drawing, hoping to have a good idea. But no, it's a rubbish idea. And it starts again, and it's thinking, trying to have an idea, which is what I do day after day, and what the little version of me does forever on a permanent loop. So where do ideas come from? For me, the best sort of deepest kind of in tune with my soul ideas or whatever come from my obsessions. Science fiction. When I was at school, I read my way through loads of science fiction books and all the books of Philip K. Dick. And one of the things that is a theme in Philip K. Dick's books in particular, as well as there being wonderful ideas, in almost all of his books is the idea that the world isn't quite what it appears to be. Things aren't what they seem. And that really chimed with me, because I had a kind of hunch that things weren't quite what they appeared to be. And so that is a theme that runs through a lot of my work. And that idea came when I was sort of digging in my garden in a flat in London, garden of a flat in London, and I came across a piece of metal, couldn't manage to dig it out, had no idea what it was, and ended up having to cover it up with grass and turf because, it was something vast under there. So real and unreal about the world. Here's an unreal idea. I don't think there really is anything called a husband flap. But what I love about this idea is the fact that even though it's untrue and not real, there's something kind of true about husbands in that idea. So thanks, Pete, for that idea, that precious idea. But going back to my obsessions and obsessions generally, where do they come from? So here's how obsessions, I think, are formed. Information, you look at the world, you experience the world, you see it, you hear it, and so on. Information goes in and it gets all jiggled up inside you and in your brain and comes out as, speech and other bodily things and ideas and drawings. So to deal with my most obvious obsession, that's Catwoman, who I used to watch when I was a kid in the 60s on television. And there's me at a party some years ago, and it's quite clear, that it's sort of gone in and got jiggled around and come out again. Well, not jiggled very much, actually. And a lot of my kind of cartoons for newspapers, this one in The Guardian, have transvestites in. And here's another one. I did quite a few cartoons about Drag Man. And in nearly all the books I've done, transvestites have sort of popped up here and there. So we've got the transvestite family and their dolls, Kenneth and Barbara and the cat and the dog. And probably, having been a kind of secret transvestite through my teens and 20s and 30s and so on, I kind of eventually decided to sort of step from one version of my world into another, or kind of try to be myself, basically. So that's what was going on there, and not live a secret life. And not be so confused as that drawing. But secrets, therefore, I think, because of the secrets in my life at that time, they were another obsession, still are. This is an exhibition poster. Tell me all your secrets and I'll put them in my drawings. And here's another person living a secret life, perhaps. So, yeah, the truth comes out at the end. And here's another exhibition poster for an exhibition with the idea that we keep perhaps sort of 9/10 of ourselves hidden from many people. Here are some people that keep things hidden. Three nudists wearing clothes. And nudists keep cropping up in my drawings too. I'm not actually a nudist. That isn't literally one of my obsessions, but I do quite a few cartoons about them. And I think maybe it's nice that they are revealing everything. And this is one of my favorite drawings because it's an idea that just popped straight into my head as I was walking up the street thinking about something else. A nude man is found lying face down on a Saab. And I just wrote it in my notebook. And it's kind of an idea that came from kind of outer space almost, like popped in. And I like it for that reason. Sex, that's another obsession. It's a wonderful subject because we're embarrassed about it and everybody wants to do it or is doing it or we think they are. So I did a book about sex, the first book I did, and I'm going to digress for a moment because how this book came about, the first book I did for Bloomsbury, which led to about 18 books for Bloomsbury, I delivered a drawing to a magazine called The Oldie, and Richard Ingram's the editor, who's a famous editor, started Private Eye and so on. He said it was his birthday, and he said if I waited in the office, they were going to have drinks in half an hour, and he invited me to stay and have a glass of wine. So I stayed, and people arrived, the wine came out, and I was standing near Richard, and he said to a lady next to him, "Do you know Stephen Appleby?" And she said, "No, I don't believe I do," looking at me. And he said, "Stephen's a wonderful artist. You should publish Stephen." And she looked at me and said, "Should I?" And I said, "That would be very nice." And she said, "Come and see me in my office next week." So I went to see her, and she was Liz Calder, one of the founders of Bloomsbury. And I didn't have an idea for a book. So she said, "Go away, and when you have something that you want to do, get in touch, and we'll discuss it." So I was away in Northumberland, where I'm from and where we often stay, and this idea occurred to me, so I did this rough drawing, and I faxed it to her in the days before email, and she phoned me straight back and said, "It's wonderful, I'll do it." And so my whole kind of book publishing career started from standing next to somebody, and, it's just that kind of anything can happen if you're open to it and take the opportunities, I guess is the lesson from that. The world of the book became a stage production in Peckham. Crocs in Frocks, obsessions from my world. Thoughts are another obsession, thinking. Like I was saying, the idea that thoughts are floating in the air, and we all have the same thoughts sometimes, like what on earth is life really all about? Pops into all our heads. Meaninglessness is another obsession. Here are some meaningless shapes. Or perhaps one of them is a representation of God. And here's pointlessness. That's another thing I love, pointlessness. Sandra has invented a machine that does nothing useful, basically. Just looks out of the window. And nothing happening is somehow a good subject too. Death, of course, is a good subject, and as I get older, it's more pertinent. And the meaning of existence. And the infinity of non-existence. And here's an entire civilization of snow people. Who are lost to history because obviously snow people wouldn't leave any fossil record. So this is the only evidence that they ever existed. And here's a drawing of before the Earth, and another drawing of after the Earth has disappeared. And philosophically, is it possible, once the Earth is gone and nobody exists who remembers it, did we ever exist? Philosophical doom. But coming back down to sort of reality, here's a picture of me, not reality, reality is still nothingness, but anyway. Here's a picture of me in my childhood world, my little world of childhood, completely not knowing what's going to come in the rest of my life. And a digression, everything surrounding me gets used in drawings, a little book about dogs. I grew up in Northumberland, in Wooler, Northumberland, and I grew up in a big old drafty house where there were rooms when I was a kid that weren't used and were full of old furniture that we could play in. And it was kind of magical. There was even an outbuilding that the sets for the local amateur dramatic society were stored in. So it's kind of a magical place, and life seemed magical and wonderful, and lots of things could happen. And then, as I set off on my journey through life from A to all the possible Bs that are ahead of all of us, it seemed like, I learned science at school and all these things, and the possibilities for sort of wonder seemed to shrink. It's a different kind of wonder, I know, but magicalness seemed to shrink. And I think magic and wonder is one of the things, sort of reinventing the world is one of the things I try and do in my work. And here's a map of my path from Wooler through school, and another single-sex boarding school, and then London, art school, London, and so on, and my death awaiting me in the middle of the road, nearer now than when I did that drawing. So life seemed a bit kind of, duller, and I kind of added more to it, but actually, there's huge unknowns, and everything is still kind of possible. You can go in all sorts of directions into the unimagined, the unexplored, the unknown. So taking a look at life, here's you or me, and the physical world that we inhabit, that we're all in now, and the world of family, the world of school, all these different kinds of worlds. And that one's dreams, nighttime, sleep, your dreams. Memories, the past, that's definitely another world. And that one, imaginary worlds, books, films, television, all these different worlds that we sort of experience. The future. And that's love, strange little world. And also our secret worlds, which if you haven't got a secret world yet, you certainly will have one day. So, basically, anything's kind of possible. There are all sorts of choices. You can go in any of those directions or all forwards. So I'm going to return to the little version of me in the little version of my studio and see whether I have had an idea yet. A rather unfortunate idea about the world. Thank you very much.